Hello, everybody, and welcome to this talk. We're going to be doing building .NET apps with DevOps. I am here with the awesome, fun-making Squeaky. Hi, Squeaky.
Hello.
I am a .NET developer, but every time I launch or put up a new app on GitHub, Squeaky immediately messages me and says, "Did you put it in DevOps? Are you building it? Have you
Usually.
done GitHub Actions?" And I don't. So I am here today to learn all about that. I am a principal product manager, as the screen says, and I am specifically working on .NET MAUI. So I am excited to be here to learn and to, entertain.
Awesome. David is my favorite partner to do this talk with because, as he said, he never adds DevOps and then complains about it. So today I've decided I will teach him everything he needs to
Please.
know. Yeah. All right. So, as David said, he's a .NET dev in a DevOps world. Did I get that right, David? Cool, cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, awesome. So let's see. As a .NET dev, tell me, how comfortable are you with using the .NET CLI? Do you use that? Do you know what it is?
I use the .NET CLI pretty frequently because I do most of my app dev on a Mac. I
Mm-hmm.
do also have a Windows machine, so I spend time
Mm-hmm.
there as well when I want the full Visual Studio. But on the
Right.
Mac, yeah, lots of CLI, mostly just doing .NET build stuff, .NET build, .NET run. I have occasionally done a .NET publish.
Okay.
I,
Okay.
I frankly have never done .NET test, didn't know it
Mm-hmm.
existed. So yeah,
Oh,
that's my
I am not.
experience.
I'm not surprised at all. You're going to learn so much today. But I just want to say, like, the best part is though, you are already there to success because the awesome part about .NET MAUI now is everything can be done through .NET, the .NET CLI. So you're doing .NET build, .NET test, if you're a good person and who tests their code. And of course, when you're ready to share something out, have an artifact, you do .NET publish. The awesome part is these are the exact same steps you do in your DevOps pipeline with an extra added, task at the bottom of it. Like once you have your generated, binary. So if you just talk all up about any kind of .NET, so it could be a class library, it could be your mobile apps, it could be your iOS, Android app, it could be your Mac Catalyst app, your Windows. Once you have your artifact, the only extra step you'd be thinking about in your DevOps pipeline is, okay, now how do I take this to its appropriate distribution spot? So it could be test flight, could be Play Store. So that's it. But what I want to like emphasize on is you are halfway there already. If you are comfortable, if you understand the .NET CLI, that's your best friend in this whole process. So awesome. Off to a great start, David. Go ahead.
I have questions. This is the raise the
Yes.
hand feature of the presentation. So,
Go ahead.
because I don't want to assume everybody who's watching knows all these things. Clearly, we all have full understandings. CLI, what does CLI stand for?
Excellent question. I should have expanded that. So CLI is the .NET command line interface. So essentially, when you're in your little terminal and you do .NET, you can do .NET dash dash help, and that pulls out all the different awesome things you can do with the .NET CLI command line interface. And there's also my favorite doc is a huge dot. We have a huge, learn documentation on the .NET CLI, which goes through every. This is a small subset of how powerful this .NET CLI tool is. So we're just
Mhm.
using what we need for our, use case today. But yeah, there's a lot you can do with the .NET CLI, and we get to explore bits and pieces of this as we go through the rest of the pipeline work today. So yeah.
And I don't need to install anything specific. I just install .NET, and the CLI is there for me. Cool.
Exactly. Awesome. Awesome.
And
Yeah.
then one more definition that I want from this slide:
Sure.
DevOps. What is DevOps? And then you can tell
DevOps
me what
is
a
a.
pipeline is too, because
Oh,
I've never
great.
been in the
Yeah.
oil business, but that's the only
We've never been
pipeline
in
I
the
know
oil
of.
business. Okay, cool. So I guess this is a good spot for me to go into the next section I had over here, which was like, are we already going to write some of these pipeline script things I've been talking about? Oh, or not yet? No, let's answer some questions that you were just asking me. So what is DevOps? DevOps is a shortened version of what's called developer operations. Um, what is the full scope of DevOps is super powerful. It's part of the whole CI/CD, so that's constant continuous integration, continuous delivery cycle of software development. There are way better experts in the whole DevOps and CI/CD space out there. I will not call myself an expert in all of everything that DevOps and things, but what the little small pocket that I do have some knowledge in is how to use these automated DevOps pipeline. So pipelines is essentially all your tasks all together that automate a bunch of these steps. So remember how you were talking about the .NET CLI, and you're manually, when you're in your app, you finish writing your code, so you're going to go .NET build, .NET run. So essentially the pipeline is just a script that has all of these tasks in there, and your DevOps system kind of runs all that for you.
Okay.
And when we're talking about these DevOps systems, we have a bunch of different options out there in the world that you can use for this. Today, we'll be specifically talking about GitHub Actions, and we'll be talking about Azure DevOps. So if you can use either of these to run the pipelines that we'll be demoing today, and I'll show you a variety of some of like how it looks in GitHub Actions as well as in Azure DevOps. And yeah, and there's also the third option of running all of this is you can just have your own little self-hosted build machine. So this could be a machine that's on your desk, under your desk, hiding in your closet, what have you. So you can also just like set up the same environment in these machines and run all the steps that we're talking about today.
Gotcha.
Does that make you feel good? Yeah. Are you excited?
Yeah. I am excited.
Okay.
Yeah, very
Cool.
excited.
Cool. There's a cool little thing I wanted to share with everyone. This is like my favorite thing to share. Whoops, I'm on the wrong tab. Going ahead there. Spoilers. But okay. So these little links that I have over here. So when you're talking, you ask me, it's like, hey, do I just have to install .NET and I'm ready to go? That's a great question. That is literally it. But also sometimes given the kind of like especially with mobile app development, we have Xcode, we have Google, like Android SDKs that we need to take care of. A cool way to understand like what's going on is like right now we're looking at the Azure DevOps hosted agent software table. There's a similar table like this for GitHub Actions. And what the team does is they basically have a quick little link. Like, for example, let's go look at what's in Mac OS 13, right? So what they do is they kind of like publish all of the pre-installed software in here. So like if I were to go search for like Xcode on this machine, okay, they have Xcode 15 command line tools, and they have all these versions of Xcode pre-installed on these machines. What's the best part about having all this information is the first step, like as you were mentioning me, like, hey, I need to install some stuff. You don't always need to install all of this from scratch. It's always good practice. Just go in, see what's pre-installed, see what you need, and then you can, work your way up from there. Just saves you some time. And these like Microsoft hosted images usually have everything you'd need to get started. You shouldn't need to have you won't have to sit and kind of set up your environment as you're getting started in this process. So it's my favorite little link. I love sharing that out with everyone. So, you have something to go look at as you're getting started. You're not stuck just in this whole first step of, oh my God, I don't even have an environment to run these automated tasks on. Cool?
Gotcha.
Okay. Are you excited? Awesome. So there's another thing I want to talk about next. Before you get started, there's some secrets you need to keep on hand. And everyone who's done any kind of mobile development before probably knows exactly what I'm talking about right now. But for our friends just discovering .NET MAUI, let's talk a little bit about how distribution works in mobile apps. So there, and even for Windows apps. So there is what's called a signing process, where you're basically kind of like signing once you're done with everything, once you do .NET Publish, it makes your binary file. Before you can publish it to any distribution system, what you want to do is you need to what's called sign it to let the systems know that, hey, I'm the real developer. I'm the one who published this artifact. Please allow this to be published on the store. So to be able to do these things, you need to have these secret files ready. So this is something you need to go to each appropriate. So Apple has its own thing in its Apple App Store. You make an App Store account, Apple developer account. Sorry, go in there. You get all the relevant files. Same thing for your Google developer account. For Windows, there's a whole document that walks you through how to get your certificate that you use for publishing your Windows apps. But this is something you need to make sure you have with you before you start getting with these pipelines, or it's just like you'll get to the distribution step and you kind of get stuck over there. So it's just nice to have all these files ready and add them into whatever, we talked about the different DevOps options that you have there. So if it's GitHub Actions, make sure you have those files already added into your secrets section of GitHub Actions. Same thing for Azure DevOps. Make sure you've added these files in to your secret files library, and it's ready for you to use. And also keep note of those passwords. Those are secret values. Make sure you put them in your secret or your Azure key vaults and keep those secrets. But David sometimes gets secret, sometimes doesn't, but I hope you remember this one. So remember, keep that secret.
I try to keep my hands off of secrets and let somebody else bear that responsibility. So,
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
mentioned that these are pipelines, and then you kind of have steps in the pipelines. Now, I personally prefer to think of things in terms of like Legos. I love Legos, right?
Uh-huh.
So, like,
Uh-huh.
can I think of these as blocks that I can kind of build my stuff together with?
Absolutely, absolutely. I am so excited to start. Let's write some YAML, David. Let's write some YAML. But I want to break, like you said,
Things
I
I've
love
never
Legos
ever
too.
said in my life.
But
Let's write
I
some
know, but
YAML.
let's do it. But let's talk about exactly what you just said. Let's talk about the flow, but let's talk about it in the terms of blocks because I too love Legos, right? So we will see a bunch of like we'll see a few different pipelines, but what I want you to like notice is all of them have a basic set, like a basic flow that they all follow. So the first off, you're setting your .NET version. Like I said, it could be something that's pre-installed. You go to that little link I mentioned, like, oh, okay, the version I want to use is already there on the system. Cool, I'm just going to use that. Or like, oh, I'm actually super cool, I love living on the cutting edge, I want the super fancy preview. So you make sure the first thing we do is we get the task in that sets up the .NET version for us. Next thing, we're going to install the .NET MAUI workloads, because as we know, we have workloads that go in, like, which are connected to the .NET version you have installed on your machine. The same thing, you're going to put in the little .NET workload install MAUI, and that's it. That's going to set up your workload. So these two steps are always going to be the same. The next one, install your signing files. As I mentioned before, if we're going to be adding a distribution task to this particular script, you want to make sure you have all these files pre-installed on these machines. You set up your connection to your Azure keyboard or wherever you have your secret. All that stuff is set up, right? The next blocks is the awesome .NET CLI tool I was talking about. After this, you're just setting up your little .NET task keys to do whatever it needs to do. Like, oh, I'm just going to do a little .NET build. Oh, I'm going to do a little .NET test. Oh, I'm going to do a little .NET publish. Those are your little blocks. You can, and then the last step will be your, so when I put this very generic as generated artifacts, because there's a lot of different things you can do at this point. You could just publish this into your pipeline and like, hey, it's just going to live as a pipeline artifact, which means you can download it from the summary page of your pipeline, again, which we'll see in a second. Or as I was talking about, hey, this is going to actually distribute it to TestFlight, going to distribute it to my Google Play Store. So you'll take these little artifacts and go wherever you need to go with it. So if it's your apps, you're going to your app stores. If it's a NuGet package, you can go to your internal NuGet feed, you can push it out to your NuGet.org. But as I was talking about, these blocks will always stay the same. So you're going to be setting up the environment a little bit, making sure you have all your right workloads, have signing certificates if it's going to the store, build, test, do all your stuff, and you have an output at the end. Another thing I forgot to mention, generated artifacts can also include your test results. It can also include your code coverage file. So it's like there's all these things that you get out of your pipeline, right? So all of that gets put into your artifacts thing, and then you can do whatever you want with it. So let's talk about a different scenario, right? So I've only been talking about like, hey, David, everything you're writing, you just want to like give it to the people. You want to give it to the people. But remember how I keep annoying you about like, hey, you don't even have a test in your pipeline. You don't have like a PR check thing in your pipeline. Well, how would you go about doing it? It's the same building blocks, right? So if you had like just a PR check pipeline, very simple. All you're doing is setting your versions, installing workloads. You're not going to be like distributing anything that's coming out of a PR check pipeline. So all you want to do is just use the building block that works for you, which is the build step. So all you're going to do is .NET build and then .NET test. If you have any tests, which you should be having tests, publish the test results. And you can ignore the rest of these blocks. Everything is a mix and match situation over here. What if you have a more advanced DevOps setup and you're just like, no, we just do all our building in one pipeline. We do releasing as a separate pipeline. Same thing. As long as you have these building blocks in there, you're just mixing and matching and making your pipeline scripts. It also makes it very modular. So there's some folks I've seen who take it to another awesomer level where they have like, these are like shareable like modules within their pipeline. So just imagine pipeline files, inheriting pipeline files, inheriting pipeline files. So they kind of just like, put the setup thing as one little pipeline, have the build as a separate different pipeline. And when they like, separate little blocks, and then when they're making their actual like dev pipelines, test pipelines, release pipelines, they kind of just like, oh, use this task, which is in this other file, use this task, which is in this other file. So you can do a lot of cool stuff But
Okay.
like I said, these are your basic building blocks though. So yeah.
I feel like you need to start showing me some stuff. I want to see some of this magic.
Yeah. Awesome. This is my favorite part. Are we getting into demo land? Okay, let's go into demo land. Okay, cool. Okay, so first one I want to show you.
I need
I want to show you.
pictures and I need easy. So just keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Sweet. This is a good one to start with, I'd say, because building a library is my favorite. Super easy. Whoops, super easy, super simple, right? So let's get into it. So I'm in GitHub Actions right now. All right. So this is our summary page because this is where I like to start
Nikki,
things
I'm getting
often.
old. Can you make the font a little bit bigger?
Oh yeah, for sure. I can bump this up.
I'm a grandfather now. Come on now. Take care of
How's
me.
this looking? Is this better? Are you
Yeah,
able to
that's
read
better, I think.
YAML and build? Are you able to read everything?
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet. Okay, so this is what's the summary page of a completed pipeline in GitHub Actions. Just some quick little things here. Your jobs over here. This, if you had other like jobs, they would all show up in this spot over here. And this is the cool little thing I was talking about, which is a build artifact. So anything that gets run and completes in this pipeline, I publish it out into this little spot over here. Alternatively, you don't need to publish your artifact here. Like I said, you could take this NuGet and go straight to your internal feed, or you can go to nuget.org. All right. So this is what the summary page looks like. But let's look at what the steps. If you click into this, it gives you like a rundown of, okay, these are all the steps that I just took. You can click into them. And okay, that's a bad one to look into. Let's look into this one where, so this is doing the build and pack of the NuGet library, but you can come in here and look at all the logs. So when there is a failure, this is your best friend. You come in here, you go look at, okay, where the exact failure happened, in which task, and why it got stuck. But let's look at what is running this whole pipeline. Like, where is it getting all these steps from? So it's getting all these steps from the YAML file. All right. So this is what you've been wanting to write this whole time. And now I'm going to show you how to write it. So super simple. Like I was talking about, we have a lot of the control stuff over here. So this is set up to like every time there's a push, run this pipeline. Every time there's a push made to the main branch, pull request is set up to the main branch. So I've set this up to like kind of run the same pipeline for any of these two actions. You can do this however else you want. You can kind of customize this step. The next thing I did was,
can I think of those
sorry.
like triggers? Those are the things that are going to trigger this. Okay.
Yep. So when we look at the Azure DevOps version of this file, you'll see instead of it as on, it says trigger. So the syntax is fairly similar, but just a little different. But the steps are, you'll start seeing a pattern to the steps. So the next thing I did was I made a little handy dandy environment variable for myself. Oh, oops, that was a jump I didn't expect. But I did an environment variable to myself, just so, anytime I need to update this to like, any of the new stuff that I want to use, I can do that. So as you can see, I'm on cutting edge right now because I love being on the cutting edge. So we're running everything on .NET 8, baby. So, all right. Let's look at our steps. So this is where I select the VM I want this to run on. So I'm running this on a Mac right now. You can run this on a Windows. You can run this on a Mac, whatever you want. This is a checkout action that pulls down the code from your GitHub repository. The next step is what I was talking about, install .NET. So a little handy dandy script over here, which just goes in. Oh, you might ask me, David, hey, Swiki, where do you get the script from? This script is actually from the .NET SDK install website. So when you go to download your .NET 8 SDKs, there's a little section. So you have all the different variations of like x64, x86. Right at the bottom, the last column says download scripts. This is that script. I didn't write the script. I don't know that. I know how to write a pipeline. So I just let the .NET folks let me get their script. I run their script. I just tell it the version I want, and my version is being set from my environment variable. Okay. And that's it. And I put in this little .NET List SDK just as a sanity check for myself, just to like, oh, I want to see what it installed over there and everything. Same thing. I recheck my sanity over here because I have no faith in myself. But essentially, these are just like self-check steps. This helps in like debugging your pipeline. If anything goes wrong, if you're having like environment issues or build issues, just to make sure you're running everything on what it needs to be on. And the next thing I do is I install .NET MAUI. So I did a bit of an overkill over here where I put Android and iOS. Honestly, you don't need it. All you need is just MAUI. But in case you want to be specific, you want to drill it down, you can break up installing your work, like, the workloads by type. So just a sample, just want to show you guys a flavor of all the different ways you can do this. But for the most part, you're just doing .NET workload install MAUI. The next step, again, this one's an optional. You don't need to always like restore your NuGet packages. But again, since we were I was in the cutting edge of preview land, just want to make sure, everything is looking good. Let's see. We've got build and pack. So this was talking about .NET Restore, .NET, everything's using .NET. And boom, we've got artifacts published. So that's it for the build pipeline. How are you feeling about this? Is it looking good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I hope that like there are examples of exactly this out there. I can just copy and paste because really,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
No, for
I'm
sure.
a
For
copy
sure.
paste. Or I could
I
ask
will.
Copilot and be like, "Hey, Copilot, can you just?"
Oh, that would be so cool. But I will be sharing out links to all of these pipelines that I'm demoing right now. So at least for you, David, you can definitely copy paste. This is the same pipeline in Azure DevOps. Like this is kind of what the Azure DevOps view looks like. If I go back, this is your summary page on Azure DevOps, like boop, boop, boop. And this is where the artifact gets published on Azure DevOps. Looking at the pipeline for this, fairly similar, fairly similar. So you've got, again, your .NET versions. You set up which image you want it to run on. We're installing preview. I've used the exact same step over here. I'm not even like,
Mhm.
making something new up for Azure DevOps. It's the same script. I'm installing .NET MAUI. Same thing, restoring my NuGets. .NET Restore, .NET Pack. That's it. Boom. So this is publishing my artifact. If I wanted this to go to an internal NuGet feed or NuGet.org, this is kind of what the task would look like. So you have a built-in .NET task in Azure DevOps. In GitHub Actions, you do .NET uh, push and then put all the variables in for which source, your username, password, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we have for our first demo, which was how to build a class library. Looking good?
Sweet. Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have a ton of time left. So I obviously have an app.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just a library author, but I'm an app author. So
Yeah.
how do I do my Maui app? Is it
Let's
different?
do
Is it
it. It's
basically the same?
it's not it's basically the same. Let's do it. So I'm going to show you two pipelines now. Like not super quick, but I'm going to show you two pipelines. One's going to be running on a Windows agent, one's going to be running on a Mac agent. All right. So we'll see how it looks like. But honestly, it's going to look the same. It's going to look exactly the same. All right. So this is again what the final look would look like. And I want to quickly show you that we have a little unit test reporting happening out over here.
Because you're a
Yep.
good developer.
I'm a good person. Yeah. And then let's have a look at same thing. Let's look at having. So this is what a unit test report would look like on your Azure DevOps. Really pretty.
Mhm.
Also, you can have code coverage come in and it shows you like, oh yeah, look at the test I ran was running off this file. It touched this file. So, all of this stuff, all this magic. How did I get it to work? Let's have a look. Shall we? All right. So boop, boop, boop. I'm going to go to the steps that are exactly the same. So GitHub Actions now. Let's build your Maui app. Same thing. You set in your .NET version. Boom, that's good. Install .NET, set up your .NET
Now
SDK.
it looked like you also chose a Visual Studio set of something up there at the top
Oh
too.
yeah. So the small change. So this time I'm on a Windows machine, right? I'm not a Mac
Yeah.
machine anymore. So and we have Windows on this machine. So all I'm doing is like I'm letting the Windows machine know that hey, I've installed a new .NET. I have all of the .NET MAUI stuff set up in here. So just make sure that you're using that same version of .NET and the new stuff to build my stuff. That's it. That's
Okay.
that's all that little step does. It's nothing too fancy schmancy. It's just setting things up to be where I want it to be. The next step I did was, again, I little OCD here, but I like to restore my NuGet packages before I start doing anything else, just to eliminate any possible issues.
Mhm.
The first thing I have here is I'm running my unit test using .NET Test. Everything is .NET Test now. This is a community task I use to publish the report, which we just saw with the little like report publishing thing on GitHub Actions, which is super nice, which is really handy. Thank you, community. You guys are awesome. The next thing I'm doing here is I'm going to build my Windows app. How am I going to build my Windows app? .NET Publish. How am I going to build my Android app? .NET Publish. That's it. That's all I'm doing. It's all .NET. Anything you want to do is .NET. So, and then I'm just publishing out the artifacts over here. So that's it. Let's look at the same. Look at this pipeline on a Mac machine, but to switch it up a little bit, I'm going to show you the Azure DevOps version of this pipeline. So Azure DevOps, the pipeline, and this time let's run it on a Mac. All right. So what this would look like is, and also fun part, this is a Blazor hybrid app that I'm showing you this pipeline for. Lesson to remember here is that it's the same steps. You're doing a .NET MAUI app, you're doing a Blazor app. It doesn't really matter. Your building blocks stay the same, right? So let's go through this. So I kind of moved up my secret setup to the top here. But again, like I said, these are building blocks. You can mix and match them wherever you want. I moved this to the top because sometimes I have issues forgetting, where things are, what the names are. I like to get this out of the way. So let's install our, so you'd install your secrets over here if we were publishing this to release to the store. Let's install .NET 8. Let's install MAUI, restored our NuGet packages, and we're ready to go. So next step, we're doing running our unit tests. I'm running it with .NET test. Next thing I'm doing, I'm also kind of collecting code coverage. Whoops, I'm collecting code coverage out here. So all I'm telling Azure DevOps to do is, hey, publish my test results, also publish my code coverage results, which is those two cool little, views that I showed you before on Azure pipelines, like this test results and the code coverage. So pre-built tasks, all the documentation is out there. It's awesome. Very easy to set up. Now I'm going to go build my Mac Catalyst app. How am I going to build my Mac Catalyst app? .NET publish, put in all the information here, boom, and I'm done. If you want to like sign this with the certificates that you installed, you can sign it right here. You go -p, put in your code signing, the code sign key, -p provisioning profile, and that's it. You're done. It's all in the .NET tool. You don't have to learn anything new, anything crazy. So yeah, so that was my Mac Catalyst. I have stubbed in tasks over here for when you want to do this for iOS. Again, it's all in here. You don't have to do anything crazy. I also have a little task on how this goes to App Store, but we'll get to that in a second. So we have App Store release in here, which is, again, it's a pre-built task in Azure DevOps called App Store release. You put in your track, you put in the identifier. There's a few other, properties that you set up based on your App Store connection, and you're done. How am I going to do my Android app, you ask? Well, I'm going to .NET publish it is what I'm going to do.
course.
Again, everything stays in .NET. You're not learning anything new out here. How are you going to sign your .NET app? Your Android app. Two options with Android, which is super cool. You can, again, pass in the parameters out here. We have that mentioned in our documentation. So -p Android key alias, -p Android key password, the whole list of overloads over there. Or there's the Android signing task, which does the same thing. So you can use that, up to you, whichever makes you feel better. And I'm not pushing this out of the Play Store. I'm pushing this to my publishing it to my pipeline. But if you want to publish this to Google Play Store, you have a pre-built task over here. You can use that. So it looks good. All of your information gets set up. Your connections are set in, and you're good to go. So
sweet. So we have like a minute and a half, because there's so much stuff to talk about.
Okay.
So
okay.
show me distribution, and then like
let's quickly see distribution. So for distribution, like I just showed you a quick sneak peek into it anyway right now. So on Azure DevOps, you have pre-built tasks that you can use. There's pre-built tasks that you can use. So you can go with the pre-built task, or you can use your CLI tool on for iOS. So for iOS, so the Xcode comes with XCRun AL tool, which can upload this. But my personal preference is to just use Fastlane. So Fastlane has its own documentation, GitHub integration, code snippets, really detailed. I would say use GitHub Fastlane for both iOS and Android distribution for GitHub Actions. So Azure DevOps, use the respective tasks. They have detailed documentation, and they can get you all the way through. So this is the same process for Google Play. So this is an example of what the Fastlane task looks like. So, key store file, password, all of the stuff that you need. And the Azure DevOps Play Store task is pretty straightforward. Action, your bundle ID, which track you want to go to. So if you're going to like an internal test track, or you're going straight to release and things like that. So these tasks are plug and play. And which is why I actually prefer Fastlane for GitHub Actions as well. Like, you could try and figure out this XE run, but if you're not really comfortable doing this, I would say stick to Fastlane, because they have documentation, they have code samples and code snippets, and it's really great. So I would use that. And did you have any other questions about distribution?
No, I think that overall, the whole build pipeline thing, yes, you're writing XAML and all that. Having now seen it, I feel a lot more confident that I could actually do this by myself.
Yeah. So just remember, use your building blocks. They're all there. Mix and match as you need. Customize each task is its own task on GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps, and each task has its own documentation page, which I will include in the resources once we share all of this out. So you can go read in detail. And it's really, like I said, plug and play. Really awesome. And everything is .NET CLI. So yes.
I love it. Thank you very much. I feel smarter already.
Awesome. Yeah. So thanks for listening. And yeah, like I said, we have resources for all this going out and everything. Like, I will share all these pipelines out as well. Maybe go spruce up some of David's .NET MAUI samples now that he's got some more of them out. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.